Welcome to the MIT Global Innovators e-seminars. Today we'll be talking about innovation is everywhere and how innovation can be developed in places that are not MIT. Okay, we're getting some feedback there. Really what we're talking about today is about how can you innovate in places that are not conducive to innovation. And that's really the premise of the next MIT Bootcamp in February. For the conversation today, you will hear from Pavithra Gopal, who is a corporate innovator currently at Sonos. Leana Silverberg, who is a senior at Brandeis University in the Boston area. And also together with my colleague, Thomas Bazergi, who is a recent graduate from Boston University, and also a startup founder and innovator. Welcome to everybody. Before we get started, I also want to share another e-learning opportunity that we will be launching shortly. In fact, we have actually launched it on our e-seminar page already. And what we're actually going to be doing are deep dives. And deep dives are focus on the subject matter area that requires significant expertise. And we're going to be starting this with a 7-part series over the next semester on intellectual property. Why do entrepreneurs, what do entrepreneurs really need to know about intellectual property? Of course, for those who are not able to make today, we're also recording this e-seminar. And so we'll see you at a recording near you. But let's start with Pavithra now. Pavithra, can you share a little bit more about yourself and what you do and all that?
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, Andrew. Hello, everyone. My name is Pavithra. I'm based out of Boston. I attended the MIT Bootcamp this year in Brisbane. It's already been 7 months. And the primary theme of that bootcamp was sustainability, kind of the intersection of sustainability and technology. And my interests were more around food and agriculture and technology. So that blended well with what I was intending to achieve from this bootcamp. And also, and so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to attend the bootcamp. Quick background about me. Like I said, I'm based out of Boston. I work for a consumer electronics company, Sonos. I have about 7 years of experience in operations and supply chain management. I do a lot of procurement and market expansion at my company. I am also doing a supply chain management course from MIT as well.
Awesome. And Leana, what about you? What brought you to the bootcamp? What was your background leading up to the program?
Yeah, so for me, right now I'm a master's student at Brandeis University. I'm getting my master's in biotechnology, and what kind of drew me to the bootcamp was kind of the sustainability and also just learning about entrepreneurship through MIT professors and mentors, and but also through just the people there. And when I was a high school student, actually, I made a charger based on my kinetic movement. And I was frustrated that my phone wouldn't charge. And so I made this charger that when you walk, your phone would be charged. And so I started kind of doing a lot of research in sustainability. How can we really harness energy? And I thought the MIT Bootcamp would be a perfect place to kind of learn more about combining sustainability, entrepreneurship, innovation. But I also have a science kind of biotech background that I also wanted to bring to the table. And there are a lot of scientists there as well. And I started working on a bunch of other things, like right now I'm in a project with the National Science Foundation. We got a grant where we're looking at protein structures, and so we're pretty much creating a technology to help replicate results for this cryo-electron microscopy, which is a high-tech technology. So kind of being a serial entrepreneur, like founder, is something that I wanted to learn more about. How do you kind of deal with the struggles of being a starter, something that, is just an idea? How do you kind of bring that into fruition? What does that look like? And that's kind of what drew me to the MIT Bootcamp.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I think there's a lot of people in both of your shoes who either, want to become serial entrepreneurs, maybe have more of a corporate background, but want to learn how to apply those innovation frameworks and skills to what they're doing now. So I guess when you were considering the program, like, what about the format of the bootcamp, like, stood out to you? Like, why did you decide to end up attending like the bootcamp as opposed to like maybe a different program that, may have given you similar skills? Like, what about MIT or, the program that we were running in Australia kind of stood out to you?
Leana, do you want to go or can I go? Okay, so I think to answer your first question of why I wanted to attend the bootcamp, the number one issue was I wanted to cultivate some good discipline in how I was approaching problems. And one of the things that stood out even during the online courses that I was taking, and I'm sure all the participants, you also, before you attend the camp, you would be encouraged, or you would be asked to attend certain online or take certain online courses, and I strongly suggest you guys take it. And one of the things they emphasize there is disciplined entrepreneurship. When I took the course, I thought it was just a fancy term and whatever. But then only when you enter the boot camp and start applying it, and all the MIT coaches and speakers, mentors, everybody, they come in and they really emphasize the importance of disciplined entrepreneurship. And that is not something that you just learn out of theory. It is something that has to be practiced in a practical way. And that 1 week of boot camp would really make sure that you get these strong, or make sure you get the concepts of that disciplined entrepreneurship. And for me, before I entered the boot camp, I just jump into the solution right away. And it's tempting. It's tempting to just jump into the solution. And they during the boot camp, they talk a lot about primary market research and also understanding the actual problem. It is important that when you tell your problem to a 6-year-old kid, he or she should be able to right away understand. So that is one of the things that I really wanted to cultivate, disciplined entrepreneurship. And that 24 steps made a lot of difference in changing the way I make decisions. And to answer your second question, Thomas, on why did I want to go to Brisbane specifically to attend, like I mentioned earlier, my interest was more around the intersection of food and agriculture and technology. And Brisbane, there are a lot of startups and companies and projects going on around food and agriculture and poultry area that I felt going there and understanding the local participants there, and also understanding or inviting speakers from that culture within the Brisbane area would make a lot of difference in me. Also, I thought it would help me get a wide network of people in that area. So I think that was one of the reasons why I chose Brisbane, to get more contacts in the food and agriculture area in a different country. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing you kind of touched on, which I thought was really interesting, was the PMR journey. And I think, especially with the whole idea of disciplined entrepreneurship, which is the framework that we teach that comes from the business school here at MIT, is the idea of really understanding the customer and going through, the steps of starting a company in a very systematic way, and making sure that you don't necessarily rush to a solution, but that you really understand the problem correctly and you understand who your customer is, because at the end of the day, if you're going to run a business, you're going to run that business for a very specific customer, and understanding who that customer is very, very important. And I think that kind of ties into, this is a blended learning program. So a lot of what we teach, students might acquire before the program during the MOOCs. So I was wondering if I could hear kind of your guys' take on, what was your experience in doing this program as a blended learning program? And like, how did you guys prepare for the program before? How did you go through the online courses? How did you kind of think through the different, the different content that we teach that you then apply during the boot camp?
Leana, do you want to take this?
Yeah, sure. So For me, how I prepared for the boot camp was kind of, I think, getting in the right mindset for the boot camp was really crucial for me, because you're going to a completely different country for a lot of people, and you're kind of just exposed to a lot of information at one time. So kind of just mentally preparing for, like, of course the online courses are crucial, but just being in the right mentality of being just kind of exposed to a lot and just taking it all in is super, super important. So just that was a huge component. But also with the online courses, I think one challenge I had with the online courses was kind of looking at it like I was actually at the boot camp. And so what I needed to do when I was taking the online courses was like thinking of myself, okay, I'm at the boot camp. How am I going to answer these questions like I'm at the boot camp? And so I started kind of thinking about it if I was talking to other people, what kind of questions they would ask me if I, gave them a pitch. And then I would think through things just by myself, with these online courses, and it allowed me to kind of go through the courses. And also the courses kind of give you a different perspective on a lot of different industries, and you hear people talk, about chargers, about different health problems that they have, that they found solutions for, and you really kind of see how other people went through problems and how they made solutions for them. So kind of looking at that and then being able to process those, it prepares you for the boot camp, because you're going to meet tons and tons of people from all different perspectives, all different backgrounds, super diverse people, and you want to retain as much as you can and be receptive to them, so that you can work together in the best way possible.
I think just to add on to that, Leana, one of the things that I really found beneficial during the boot camp was the bootcamp coach. They recommended a book called Made to Stick. And if you guys, the participants here, the audience here, if you guys ever get a chance to read the book, I strongly recommend reading the book. It was an absolutely mind-blowing book. And reading that book and then coming to the boot camp, the book along with the training in the boot camp strongly emphasized for me the importance of elevator pitch. And the way you tell the elevator pitch or whatever concept or innovation that you're trying to deliver to the recipients, it's not just you just tell or state the facts. It is important that you tell a story. It is important that you relate to that story at a personal level and deliver it in a very convincing way, right? The online boot camps, the training, the book, or the online boot camps and the book, they talk a lot about how to deliver your speech. But it's an online boot camp. You don't get to interact with a lot of people. You could prepare for different scenarios, but the challenge is when you actually meet people in real time is when you realize how complicated situations can get. So while the online boot camp was a great experience, getting to the actual training, getting to the actual boot camp makes a lot of difference in how your innovation is going to change, what kind of situations we have to factor in to prove your solutions, right? And also, we spent literally a whole day during the boot camp just thinking about elevator pitch and how you're gonna deliver it. And it's one of the most intense. Probably the elevator pitch day was one of the most intense days. So that was also one of the biggest takeaway for me.
And speaking of, the creative components of the bootcamp program, where you have to find a real problem to solve, where you have to reach out to customers, potential customers, validate your hypotheses related to these problems. Are they big enough markets? Just also share with the audience that on the one side of creativity, specifically in finding creative solutions, a lot of time it's very intangible. But what we do at the bootcamp is we take the discipline process or the scientific process of how you can systematically validate and manage the risk in the inherent risks related to innovation and entrepreneurship, and to put that into a system to manage it. And that's probably one of the biggest learning components. You know, you have the hard knowledge of innovation, but you also have the intangible training components where you have to find out how to form a team, how to work with the team, how to work with a team that you may not have enjoyed, whether it be formed by the people here at the boot camp, or if you found your own team, or even if you're working in a startup or corporate innovation ecosystem. So can Pavio or Leana talk a little bit about the team components?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Leana, I'd let you go first.
Okay. So the team component, what I think was a really interesting part of the boot camp, because you pick your own team, and so it's really about kind of finding that team, and you're put in kind of a glob of 130 people, and you got to talk to people to figure out who you might work best with. And at first, I was, talking to a lot of people, and I found this other scientist who was a biochemist, molecular biologist, and I thought that he had really good ideas and he was super innovative, but he didn't know exactly how to convey some of the material that he was talking about. So we worked together, and we kind of came up with a plan on how we were going to actually talk to other people about this super, super scientific idea. So that really helped us. And then we started talking to people at the boot camp, and people were suddenly really interested about our ideas. And that helped us just form a team. But then when we formed a team, we wanted to really start out by making sure that, one, everyone had a say, but also if we don't necessarily agree with something, that we're honest about it, because we didn't want to always kind of have this unnecessary tension, because especially in an environment where you need to be innovative, and you could have the craziest ideas. You want to be able to just say those crazy ideas, and then people can bounce off their own ideas, and that's how you can form a tangible, actual, feasible idea, maybe even from a crazy one. So we wanted to make sure that was possible by telling people in a constructive way that let's maybe pivot that idea somewhere else, but we didn't want to knock down any ideas. So we kind of set our own ground rules for the team, and it actually worked out really well throughout the week. So
Hey, Leana, I got a question for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Part of that ground rule process
Mm-hmm.
was consequences are not either showing up or delivering. What were the consequences for your team?
Yeah, so sometimes we would disagree, and those were always interesting when there were kind of disagreements. We had a real problem kind of figuring out which markets we really wanted to go into. And so there was a lot of deliberation about that. But we kind of walked through it, where instead of taking sides, 2 people were here, 3 people were here, whatever it was, we looked at it as, we're a team, let's figure this out together. So we took all of the ideas and we kind of went through them step by step. And, we didn't think about it, oh, I said this idea, you said that idea. We looked at it as a team level, and then looked at it, okay, does this work? Is this working for a good market for the idea that we have? And then we would knock it off. And then finally we came to a few, and then we would discuss which ones would be the best ideas or which problems we really needed to solve. And so we had to kind of bring it back to, instead of who said what, like, we're working as a team. So that's kind of how we had to continue reining ourselves in. Yeah.
And Pavi, what was your learning in terms of the team component for the boot camp?
Sure, this is one of my favorite topic. I think I remember very well. So when we did the boot camp, our thought, there are different criteria, strategies for forming a team, on how you want to, or what criteria you want to look at a person to form a team. But the way I approached it is, we wanted to have 5 people in the team, let each one person have a core competence. We wanted one person in finance, one person in legal, one person in marketing, one in operations, and one person that's really good at branding. So all people come together, and because each of us have our own core competence, it will be easy to, once we find the problem, it will be easy to go on our own page and finish or find the true, or find our core competence and use it on the project. But that was our strategy. But I feel like that did not go well, because each of us had our own core competence, and it is so hard to come up to a common agreement of what's the best problem. So I remember very well, it was 2 a.m. in the morning. All of us were brainstorming all the problems that we wanted to solve. And so so during my boot camp at Brisbane, the mentors and the boot campers also come up with a couple of projects that were hosted by the Australian government. So they also came up with some problems. They wanted our participants to solve that problem if possible. So we were looking at those problems and see what kind of problems. And all 5 of us were completely in disagreement with audit. While 3 of us would agree to say, okay, let's go with this project, two of us would be like, no, we're not going to go ahead with it. So the mentors were really awesome. And finally, at I think 4 a.m. in the morning, they decided, okay, why don't each one of you go ahead and write down all the problems that you're facing, and let's vote, and let's all the 5 would vote on whatever the problem is the best, and let's go ahead with the problem. So I think that was one of the best strategies. And even though we were all like drained out of energy, had no energy, that 4 a.m., that wake-up call was the best. And we finally narrowed down to a problem which we decided to go for. It was an energy-saving project for corporations. So for me, there are different ways of forming teams. It really comes down to what is your opinion, what kind of people do you want to deal with in your team, and how cooperative they are with your ideas and things like that.
Just to provide additional insight about what Pavi spoke about, the bootcamp also invites corporations to submit corporate challenges, real problems that they are solving, real problem areas that corporations are interested in solving. And that's really core to what we do at boot camps, because what we're primarily interested in is solving the world's greatest challenges with the best in technology, and of course with the best people. And so part of that is encouraging corporations to join us on this journey. And so if you or your corporation is interested in engaging with us at a future bootcamp, you can email us at bootcamp@mit.edu. To engage in providing a corporate challenge, a real problem area for students of the bootcamp to solve. And now we also want to talk a little bit about the next part. Each day of the bootcamp has a thematic focus. And the next part of that process is to do primary market research, or as you have heard from everybody here, talk about PMR. What is PMR? And why is it primary market research, not just a research report or a survey? And I'm going to ask really hard questions because, you know, Pavi, Leana, and Thomas, of course, please feel free to chime in. But really the point here is, you know, we only have 24 hours in one day. How the heck do you do primary market research and validate your hypotheses in this crazy short amount of time?
I can take this question. So one of the advantages of you attending a bootcamp is you have a huge, wide network of people in the alumni network. So once you're successful in finding the actual problem, the bootcamp coaches and the mentor would strongly encourage you to reach out to all the wide array of alumni network that we have, to see if you can locate a group of people that fit your model, that fit your problem that you're trying to solve. So that was how I found, or our team did the primary market research. We would reach out to our coaches and they would immediately like, oh, go to this network and just find a group of customers and try and interview them. And that is very, very important to have the primary market research straight, because without that, there are high chances that you are not even approaching the right market. Your problem is not addressing the right market. And you might be spending thousands and millions of dollars spending your time trying to address a problem that isn't even a problem. and that you're trying to address a market for which your product is not even needed. So the group here, really, the coaches really, they spend a whole day talking about why the PMR is so important, and they give you all the resources necessary for you to find the market research, right? For example, the biggest advantage, like I said, we have is the MIT Alumni Network, right? Whatever help you need, seek out to them and make sure that your primary market is right. And even if you have 1% of doubt that, hey, I'm not really sure about the PMR, don't go to the next step. Make sure you get it 100% right before you get to the next step. That's
also, just to add to that, since PMR is so important and it's a huge, crucial part of just the business, but also just the boot camp in general, we as a team really had to strategize. How were we going to do our customer research? And so we first of all, we were in Australia. And so we first wanted to reach out to people in Australia because we were in the same time zone. So that was something that we had as an advantage. And we were our team was looking at solar panel efficiency, and so we had a really great market in Australia. But when we started talking to people in Australia, we realized that we actually wanted to focus in the US. So then we had to think about, okay, how are we going to talk to people in the US with the time difference, but also make sure that we're not only talking to our potential customers, but we're also talking to people that can validate the research that we have. So we had to do a lot of things at once. And so we really had to strategize who was going to kind of take on certain roles. And then, okay, if we're going to call someone at 5 a.m. in the morning, are people going to be able to sleep beforehand? So we kind of made almost a list of all the people we needed to talk to, what the questions were super important. What are we going to actually ask the people that we're talking to? So that was a huge thing. We had a bunch of lists of different questions for different people. So just making a strategy for your customer research is super, super valuable, because especially at the boot camp, you have limited time, and also in a company or a business or a startup, you also have limited time. You have competitors, you might have funding, a limited amount of funding, whatever it is. There's always time that you really need to focus on, and how are you going to utilize that? So just to that.
And adding on to that, I think I just want to stress like how important the primary market research aspect is of the boot camp. It really is the core, because you're trying to validate or invalidate your problem and eventually your solution. And that's what eventually leads you to, finding a real paying customer and building a sustainable venture. So we really stress the importance of speaking to real people. Like, a lot of people will say like, hey, can I create a survey or send a survey out on the internet? And while there definitely is, some benefit of doing that once in a while, with the survey, you can't really ask the follow-up questions. And the importance of being able to speak to real people is you get them telling stories of their experience. And through those stories, you get to ask follow-up questions, and you go through different paths. And that's where you really discover interesting insights and interesting problems that you never would have even thought of. And I think with the bootcamp itself, what I really think is cool about the experience is it's really designed to be super intense. So as Leana was talking about, like, you have to strategize. And that's part of the bootcamp, because it's like we throw so much work at you in 1 week that, like, if you don't figure out how to strategize and work within that team, you're not going to be able to pull that off. So that's like part of the magic of the bootcamp, is like the intensity, where it's like, okay, you have all these lectures, and then you start, you might not even start doing your customer interviews until like 11 p.m. or you might not do it until it's nighttime. And you're like, okay, well, who do we talk to? Everyone's asleep. And usually what we say is, well, no matter where you are in the world, there's one part of the world where people are awake. So it really ties into the aspect of the bootcamp where we say, like, don't give yourself any excuses. Like, there's always people out there. There's always a solution. You just need to think in a different way and see how you can go about getting on the phone with somebody. And even during the bootcamp itself, like, just go up to people in your cohort, go up to people in different teams, ask them, if they want to speak to you for 20 minutes. I know in the last couple of boot camps, like, a lot of boot campers took that approach, especially if you're in a country where you don't speak the local language. We just did a innovation entrepreneurship boot camp in Brazil, and most of the boot campers were from different countries. So that's another challenge. Like, how do you do primary market research in a country where you don't speak the local language? Yet people were still able to do it. They were still able to go out, you know, talk to real people and develop really innovative solutions to real problems. So I think that, you know, that's part of the magic of the boot camp, is like, how do you solve these like unconventional problems in like a very short and condensed amount of time?
Just to add to that, one thing that I was thinking of when you're at the boot camp, a lot of people, I know this kind of goes to advice, but when you're at the boot camp, a lot of people tend to kind of stick in their own teams, because that's kind of the goal. You know, the goal is to make a startup with your team, and through all the education that you learn from the boot camp. But you don't realize how much knowledge is just at the boot camp, and not only at your team, but you have 100 and some odd people there that want to talk to you, that want to learn from you, and vice versa. And so don't just stick in your team. There's just so much out there, and people want to learn from you, and you should also learn from them. So that was something that I really learned and tried to utilize when I was at the boot camp. Even though it's extremely hectic, it's also just so exciting because you're always kind of out there.
Yes, and if I may add, Leana, the boot camp really is an educational experience that brings you through the first 2 to 3 years of startup life in 6 days, 7 days, depending on how you count it. And part of that is really pushing yourself. And so one of the things that we look at the or we talk about at the boot camp is the criteria of extreme ownership. You need to own the problems you want to solve, and you need to find people that are on that same journey, and that's really core to what it is, and that's why we constantly harp on the area. You have to have a real problem. You have to find the right people to work on the same problem with the right motivation, with the right skill sets. And so that's really part of that process. And also some people talk about, oh, what about, will anybody sign an NDA? Or will anybody, you know, I have a problem that, you know, I think is awesome, but at the same time, I'm also a little bit wary of sharing it. But then the concern there is that if you don't ever share the problem you want to solve, how are you ever going to solve it? And so that's always a big question that we get to. The other part that I also wanted to talk about was, or feature or highlight, the coaches at the bootcamp. Really, I think from our perspective as the bootcamp team, we want to build a program that has the world's best coaches. And what we look at as the world's best coaches really are people who have either who are alumni of MIT, who have graduated from MIT, from the School of Management, from other faculties here at MIT too, and also several alumni from the bootcamp who have not only come through the bootcamp, but have also accelerated an innovation-driven venture in a very, very significant way. And so they can share real-time and real-life insights and stories for you to learn from. And that's probably the some of the more significant aspects to that. My question for Leana and Pavi, if you'd like to share more, is what was the coaching experience like for you?
It was the best. We had the best coaches. One of my favorite topic was about solar energy, and also the lecture about Bill Ollitz on solar energy and the energy saving measures. That was mind-blowing. A speech about energy saving projects, but also Brian Cipriano's talk about blockchain. Really, that was a very eye-opening topic for me, because I knew blockchain, I just knew the definition of blockchain and how it was being used at different industries, but I never knew the technical aspects of it. So that coach was really, really good. And every speaker that comes in, every coach that comes in, they have something to teach you, and they are really amazing. So if you will be spending about 20 hours a day, or throughout the whole night, you'll be working on your project. But during the day, there are a lot of speakers, coaches that come in and talk about the current trends. So I strongly encourage you guys to not miss them, and definitely go to those lectures and get a lot of knowledge about those lectures. That was my takeaway, because there were 1 or 2 lectures that I had to miss to go talk to some of the customers. And I had to go back and look at the recording at a later time, but I really wished I was there to watch those lectures live. So my advice to you guys is don't miss any of the lectures. Or if there's a guest speaker that is coming in to talk about, one of the best guest speakers that came out during our batch was the McDonald's CEO at Brisbane. It was the mind-blowing talk about how McDonald's is going towards AI and what technology they're going to implement in the AI field. So it was a mind-blowing speech that I was very, very impressed with.
Pavi, do you mean, was it the pizza?
Pizza Hut.
Domino's Pizza
Hut.
in Australia, yeah.
Yes, Pizza Hut.
Yeah, also to add to the coaches, they are pretty much there to help you guys, like the people at the boot camp. And so if you really think about that, you can come to them with really, really interesting questions, whether it has to do with your team or kind of just a question that you have about your own kind of personal entrepreneurship growth. And so that was something that I thought was really great, because I would have just discussions about how did they go from kind of just an idea to maybe a startup, and what problems did they face, and am I going to run into those same problems, and how do I know how to kind of address them and face them in the right way that could be helpful. And so I had some really, really great coaches. And one part that I thought was really great was at the end of the boot camp, you're presenting to a group of around 30 people, 40 people, and then there are 6 teams that are selected to kind of go on to present in front of everybody. And the first time you present, you get a lot of feedback on what you did wrong, what you could improve on, what you did right. You don't have a lot of time to kind of go through it, but you have enough for your coaches to really tell you how to improve. And I was one of the presenters, and they really just walked me through all the things that I could improve on, and they were very meticulous about it. So at the boot camp, you kind of have to have a hard shell, because you're going to get criticism, but it's all criticism that allows you to improve. So your coaches will kind of give you the ability to see your own strengths, but also how to improve your weaknesses, both as a team and individually. So take advantage of that, because they have a lot to teach.
Yeah, and also to add on to that point, Leana, the way the coaches structure this whole training is each one of the team members will act as a CEO for that particular day. So they will own the team, they will own the idea that day, and towards the end of the day, they will act as the CEO for that solution, for that team, and they would have to attend the board meeting where all the teams, all the 30 teams, all the 30 CEOs would have to present their ideas, come up or have to tell what problems they are facing to the coaches, and the coaches would give you their advice on how to deal or how to solve that. So that was also one of the topics that I really loved and enjoyed.
And if I may add to that, what Leana and Pavi spoke about is the idea of SMART feedback. It's so the word SMART means specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and time-related. And so it's constructive feedback, not just criticism, but feedback that you can actually act upon, that you can systematically address in the deliverables that you have presented in any sort of the engagement work that you're doing. And so that is really core to what we do at the boot camp. It's not about just learning from instructors, from faculty, from coaches, from peers, but also it's also an alignment of your personal and professional journey. Is it aligned? Is it going in the same direction? Do you know self-discovery as well? Do you really know what you want to do? Can you discover what you want to do for the next 30 years of your life? One of the questions that we've always asked before we changed and evolved the admissions process was, what is the world going to be like in 30 years, and what is your place in it, with the emphasis of what your place is in it. And really what we think from that perspective is, where's your life now and where do you want to go? Now, if you add 30 years to your life, can you see yourself where you want to be, and can you chart a trajectory for that? And so really what we're doing here is helping you think ahead and to make plans for this new direction. So Leana and Pavi, what are your new directions in life? Have they changed? What are you doing now?
I have decided to concentrate more on operations and supply chain management, and my path the goal that I have set myself is to stay focused on the food and agriculture industry. I am gaining more competence on the supply chain and operations and see how I can implement those in the industry that I am working on. And not just technical competence, I am also whatever I've learned in the bootcamp, the discipline of entrepreneurship, I am trying to cultivate that same discipline, and I'm trying to implement that on a daily basis. Starting from elevator pitch, you come up with the problem, you have conversation with people on an everyday basis. How do you talk to people? How do you market your talents in a convincing way? So that was a big takeaway for me from the bootcamp, and that is something that I'm applying on an everyday basis, and I'm continuously learning from it.
So for me, the boot camp taught me a lot of things. So I'm going to try and kind of go through a few of them that I think are most important. But one, the boot camp kind of taught me how to think in a different way that I was not kind of exposed to beforehand, or it just made them very aware in my mindset, where you could take the most simplest question that, you know, even a child could ask, and if you go into detail about what that question really means, you realize that it's a lot more complicated than you initially, you know, really think. You know, a kid could ask what color is the sky, or why is the sky blue, or, you know, those questions, and you don't really think about them until they're right there. And it's kind of an interesting perspective, where looking at the simple questions, especially as a scientist also, are sometimes the most important questions. And so just kind of thinking through that was something that I learned at the boot camp. Also, confidence. Confidence was another thing that the boot camp taught me. I guess when I applied to the boot camp, I was thinking, you know, I'll apply. I have nothing to lose. Seems like a really amazing opportunity. So I kind of just put my feelers out there. And then I started kind of, oh, they want me to be in the next round, and then the next round. And I was like, whoa, like, am I even qualified for this? Is this real? What's happening? And I kind of really had that imposter syndrome, especially when you're accepted to the boot camp. It's like, why am I here? Everybody's so intelligent. Everybody has so much to offer. What am I doing? But then you realize that you're in an environment where you really do have a lot to offer as well. You're coming from a very different experience than everybody else is coming from. So use that. And so kind of that confidence of, I have an opinion as well, and that opinion matters, gave me the confidence to apply to other things. Like now that I have the National Science Foundation Innovation Corps grant with a team, and we're focusing on a cryo-electron microscopy. I had the confidence to go through that interview and say, this is what we're doing, this is what we want to do, and we're going to do it, pretty much. And so the confidence was a real component of that as well. So those are two things that I wanted to focus on.
I also want to add one more thing. Really make use of the network or make use of the friendship that you develop during the boot camp. That goes a long way, because the network of people that you meet, they are extraordinary people, and the boot camp experience is a really intense experience, and the people that you meet, they come with a lot of positive energy. And just to give you a few examples of people that were at my boot camp, we had a person that was developing a technology to detect the visual impairment in a very minimal amount of time. We had an environmental lawyerist and advocate from Brazil. We had an education disruptor from Nigeria, an interior decorator from Thailand. So it's you're meeting all of these incredible people all within a week. And so make use of that time and make sure to network with those people, and be sure to stay in touch with them, and make use of the alumni network. That is a very rare and incredible opportunity that I urge you guys to not miss out on that.
And if I may add to that, as an alumnus of the inaugural boot camp, so many people don't know that I was part of the first boot camp and then had the opportunity to come back to MIT to work with the boot camps team to scale this program. There was a new program at that time, and I think Sarah Klein, if you're watching this, this is yours. What she said, what really resonated with our class, and also resonated with a lot of the other future boot camps. And she really said this, MIT, and I'm prefacing it now, that MIT has the ability and the convening power to bring the best people from around the world. And what she said at the introduction on the first day was, hey, I found my people. I thought I was that one person out there, that crazy person that, had all these ideas and things I wanted to do in my life that I just couldn't find other people. I mean, we've all been trying to find the right people and to work together, but finally you come to the boot camp, you go like, oh my gosh, you guys think the same way. I'm not crazy. This is possible. And that's really what it is. And so moving forward from that, we've kind of really adopted the African proverb: if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you've got to go together. And I've added a new spin to that, which was, if you really want to do the impossible, you have to found a team. And founding a team that is motivated and that is highly efficient, that is highly competent, is a really challenging thing. And that's what we hope to give you, the practical hands-on skills of doing that at a boot camp. I'm going to pass it to Thomas now, but Thomas can talk about the culture of the culture of team at in our team, and how that continues to be the example that we set for everybody else who comes to the boot camp to consider and follow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've all touched on some really interesting points. I know in terms of the boot camp, the community is a huge aspect of it. And that's definitely something that we look for when people apply. We want people that will really put the team above themselves and that don't really have a big ego, because we really see the team as that central force that really is there when you're, going through difficult times, where you're struggling to start your company. You need that strong team to help, get you through those really difficult problems. And I think, while our programs are innovation and entrepreneurship programs, there's kind of this underlying, I don't know if you'd call it a theme, but there's this aspect of human connection where people all want to come to this program to meet new people, meet new friends, meet co-founders. And, beyond just starting a company and eventually making money, it's about those human relationships that you create. And I think that is something that a lot of people crave nowadays, especially as, technology has changed. And, it's something that, although it's an innovation entrepreneurship program, it also provides this very intense shared experience where, you know, you're going through a boot camp, you're working 20 hours every single day. It's a very unique experience. And by the end of that program, you have that shared experience in that community of people. And after the boot camp, you know, it's a community that lives on. It's a community that, you know, people still work together. People collaborate. They, you know, they start companies together. People even go to each other's weddings and plan ski vacations. Like, I'm not making this up. It's like, it's a very vibrant and active community of people who hang out and who still remain friends. And I think one really important aspect of that that's, you know, that's really stood out to me, especially working on the MIT Bootcamps team, is this idea of giving back and asking people, like, what do you need help with? Like, one thing that really stood out to me when I first joined was the team would, you know, help me, would ask me, like, what do you need help with? Like, how can we help you? And I think that culture of giving and that culture of helping other people is really what's so important about, you know, the MIT Bootcamps community, and is really what has helped it, you know, keep going forward and keep sustaining itself. And I think, to me, that's one of the most special aspects of being part of the boot camp and being part of this community, is the aspect of, you know, people are willing to go out there and help you if you want to ask. And I think that's, to me, a really important part.
Yeah, and to add to that, really, I think a big part of what we're trying to do here is to build this amazing community. But also, you need to realize, if you're considering attending this program, is that the community does not exist without the rigor and the hard work that you need to put in, whether it just be at the boot camp or, you know, beyond that, with the innovation work that you're focused on. And so they're both complementary. One can't do without the other. So, you know, in as much as you're considering to be part of this, also consider the other part in terms of ongoing engagement, you know, after the program as well. We have one question from Yuan Wei, and he's asking, do people start their venture after the boot camp or with the team they form? Do you follow up with participants? So first question, do people start ventures with people they met at boot camp? Absolutely. From the first boot camp, we've had Miranda and Laurent. Miranda's from Melbourne. Laurent's from Paris, France. They met at boot camp and they've co-founded their startup, and then they moved on to a second startup, and they're still working hard at it. That was 4 years ago. We've had another team that met at the boot camp. Deborah was a researcher working in Brazil, and she was working on a cancer diagnostic, essentially with a chip the size of a quarter or somewhere of that size. She was working on the ability to detect 18 different kinds of cancer as a diagnostic on that. And she met her team at the boot camp, didn't want to work on the problem that she was working on, and then eventually came full circle. And now she has an amazing team. 3 years later, they're founded in Boston. One of their team members is undergraduate at MIT. Another advisor is also in Spain. The team just keeps going. And then, of course, more recently, we had more Latin Americans, one from Brazil. So Tiago Naves at the bootcamp before yours, Pavithra and Leana, they were working on issues with flights and travel, cancellations and delays, and now it's been in the news constantly. And so they're working on several different projects, and then we also have people who are working in between cohorts, meaning to say that they're networking and they're meeting other people from different cohorts and trying to find out synergistic opportunities to work with others in the same area. And really coming back to the opportunities, Leana, I want to ask you specifically to share about the opportunity that you recently had with Angela Scott, if you can share that a little bit.
Sure. So I was at the Bio Conference, which is this huge biotech conference that happens every year, where around 18,000 people come together in the biotech industry and collaborate, partner, see what's happening with new startups. It's this huge, huge conference. And I was fortunate to attend the conference. And I found out that another former boot camper, Angela Scott, was there. And for those of you who don't know who she is a scientist who actually did research on Dolly the sheep. And Dolly the sheep was the first mammal that was cloned. So it was a very, very big deal. And I actually got into science when I was 8 years old. I was just reading a Scholastic magazine, if you guys remember that those even exist. And I was learning about cloning, and I was just kind of curious, like, what is all this cloning about? And I started learning about Dolly the sheep, and I just kept on asking question after question after question. And here I am studying biotechnology. So, and I was fortunate to meet her at the conference just this summer. So it was a really, really awesome experience for me to meet kind of one of my role models from a child who also went to a boot camp, which was just insane. And just to talk to her about kind of what she went through, going from a very, very hardcore science aspect in her life where she was really doing research to now kind of focusing also on the business aspect of things as well. And that's something that I want to do. So kind of just hearing her and just collaborating with her and just talking was a really, really great experience.
And just to give you an update on the Bootcamp Alumni Network, we currently have, I think, and Thomas, please confirm, but like, what was it, 700 plus alumni from
I think
over...
we have more than 800 now.
Oh, okay.
Boot camps, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, close to 1,000, let's say, from 75 different countries. So even if you don't count the hard innovation part of things and you're traveling, you're on vacation, and want to meet awesome people from around the world that are like-minded and aligned in their life trajectory, you're going to have such an amazing experience for the rest of your life. And consider this, you know, we're running boot camps. We started off with 1 boot camp a year, and then now we're like, what, 3 or 5, somewhere there?
Yeah.
And really the idea that you're going to become part of this amazing network that will continue to keep growing. And to, you know, and as we continue with the selectivity in the admissions process, I think that's going to be an amazing network to be part of. I've significantly benefited from it. I've made such an amazing number of friends and collaborators. It's just been incredible. Yeah. Pavithra, what are your thoughts on that, the network?
Absolutely, because I have gone on to reach out to multiple people within the bootcamp alumni who were graduates of class 4, class 7, some of them who attended the bootcamp in South Korea, only to reach out to them to get some ideas on how they would approach problems that they're also working in supply chain management. So I've reached out to them. So having this network is hugely beneficial. And also to your point, Andrew, there are so many posts going on Facebook in this alumni network of, hey, I am going to Switzerland for a week. Are there any MIT alumni here? Let's get together and see what your interests are, what my interests are. So there are always posts going on, always activities going on, and there are always projects, active projects like, hey, I'd like your help. Is there anyone that can contribute to this? And like, there's immediately at least 20 comments talking about, yes, I can help. And everybody is definitely willing to help. So to all the participants here, if you have a question, please reach out for help, because the coaches here at the MIT Bootcamp and the Alumni Network is really willing to help. They're looking for active projects. They're looking to help you guys. So feel free to reach out for any help. And yeah, that's my advice. And I also think one more advice that I really wanted to tell you guys is keep an open mind when you go to the bootcamp program, because I had an idea in my mind and I was trying to push it to my team, and that is not going to work. You are there to learn and keep all your projects outside, and you're there to form a team and know them, and then try to find a problem that all 5 of you are in agreement with. And really just keep an open mind and try to network with as much as people as possible and get the maximum value out of it.
Leana, last thoughts?
Yeah, so the boot camp is a real experience that you have to have a passion for something. You have to be able to, whether it doesn't matter what it is, but just to kind of go for it. The boot camp is not for people that's gonna just sit back and wait for opportunities to happen. It's for people that are willing to do whatever it takes to make something happen. And so that's something that I kind of realized in the MIT Bootcamp, and it's a real network for people who are interested in helping, in being part of this community where they want to just be innovative and focus on entrepreneurship. Yeah.
What about you, Thomas? Any other advice, feedback?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the feedback that you guys have given so far has been amazing. And I'd say, I think a lot of people who consider coming to the bootcamp are in a state of transition. And even if you don't necessarily know what your next step is, or where you want to, if you want to start a new company, if you want to apply to a new job or do something else, and it's okay to not be sure. And I think a lot of people come to the bootcamp to find that out and to find a community that they can access and that can help them answer those questions about, what do I want to do next? Do I want to start a company? Do I want to, have a transition in my career? So I'd say no matter, if you're in a state of transition, it's okay. Consider applying to the bootcamp and seeing what you can learn and seeing how you can apply these different innovation frameworks to different aspects of your life, whether it's in a new company or in an existing corporate.
Just one last thing to add. The criteria for admissions, which makes it selective, are the following. Capacity for calculated risk. There is going to be inherent risk in anything that you do. The bootcamp and the innovation frameworks that we teach help you to manage that risk. And Leana and Pavithra spoke about this earlier. And really, it's also about open and critical thinking. Are you able to think openly, receive feedback from the diversity of the people in your cohort, and of course, from potential customers? And are you able to apply that critically in the work that you're focused on for that week and beyond? And then the other part too is really initiative for follow through, right? Many start, but few finish. What we're looking for is for the people with the ability to persevere. What we're looking for is for the people to push through the challenges. Sure, you've never done it before, neither have we. But we will work with you to find a way forward. And finally, last but not least, really it's about the community. And it's a circular economy in terms of the community, because really it's about you becoming part of the community, but also having been through this program, then being able to give back, and that circle continues. That you become a resource, and I can count the number of times that I've asked for help, people have asked for help, and we've given freely, and the ROI on that is exponential. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. If you have questions, please email us at bootcamp@mit.edu. Thank you, Pavi. Thank you, Leana and Thomas, for your time. Until the next one, see you online. Bye for now.